I'm going to be in conversation again a bit today with Dr. Wizdom Powell. We're going to have a formal introduction of Dr. Powell, but hopefully what you will see in our discussion today and through Dr. Powell's genius is kind of a compendium to what it is that we began last week with De La Soul in talking about good health and the importance of health. And I think they teed it up well for us in terms of looking at mind, body, and soul. But so that I don't take too much time away, and our hope here today is that you are in conversation. Again, I'll be in beginning conversation and setting some tones and some notes, but the expectation is that you'll be engaging Dr. Powell. But to formally introduce Dr. Powell, we have Mr. Jeffrey Cook, a dual degree major in civil engineering and applied physics. Brother Cook. Did I do okay with that intro? Okay, good. I said civil engineering. I didn't just say engineering.
Good morning, brothers. As he said, my name is Jeffrey Cook. A lot of you know me as Kels. I am a dual degree applied physics and civil engineering major from Brooklyn, New York. So today I am honored, and I'm both pleased and honored to introduce Dr. Wizdom Powell, PhD. She's a population health disparities research scientist, clinical psychologist, and tenured professor. She is recognized as a leading expert on racial trauma, healing, and health equity. Dr. Powell previously served as a White House Fellow and Special Advisor on the military mental health in the Obama administration. She is also the Tech Advisor for the Evidence Watch Collective and the former Chief Purpose Officer at Headspace. Today, she's taken her time to break down a plethora of mental stigmas that has been casted upon us on what masculinity is supposed to look like. Without further ado, Dr. Wizdom Powell.
Good morning.
Dr. Powell, good morning and welcome. And thank you for being here. My friend, my dear friend, we were talking and catching up a little bit, and it's interesting as you get older, you're able to say stuff like, I've known you for decades. And like I said a little bit as a preamble before your introduction, I think that this is particularly appropriate to bookend how it is that we're stepping in and looking at health with young black men in particular and the import of it. And one of the things that I think is important to let the young men here know is that we had a difficult time first semester last year, right? We had a hard time because we had unexpected and tragic losses from our brotherhood. And one of the things that you did immediately is you reached out and you said, how can I be helpful? What are things that I might be able to do so that I can be helpful to, and it wasn't that community or your community, it was how can I be helpful to our community that is in this space in Atlanta on this red dirt clay hill. Can you talk to us a bit, and I want to get into kind of the genesis of your work and all that kind of stuff and kind of your life story narrative. You know, that's what I'm oftentimes interested in. But can you talk about the importance of, or how and why it's important for you to be here in conversation with these young men, and why it's important for you to be available in the ways that you are, considering and I don't use this casually, considering the multiple geniuses that you hold and you have?
So thank you for the question, and I really want to make it clear as I respond to your question what was rumbling inside of me as I observed the loss and the losses that were occurring on this campus. First, I thought about my son. I thought about my nephews. I thought about my grandfather, who, if you've, for any of you who may have come across things that I've written and talked about, my grandfather serves as a primary motivation for me in my work. And one of the things I knew very early on was that the consequences of his early passing were not disconnected from the myriad messages that I'm sure he received about what it meant to be a man in the world. Mm-hmm. That to be a man meant to be strong, stoic, and silent. Mm-hmm. And as I observed what was happening on this campus, I thought about both the loss of the brothers who are now in the ancestral realm, but the ones who are left behind, who also are observing in real time the same kinds of consequences and exposures that perhaps sent that young man to that cliff, right? Or those young men to those cliffs. And I wanted to make sure that, and this has always been a part of my why, that the scholarship that I've written about, hundreds of papers and things like that, kind of lives in a place that, maybe you would read it if that's your interest. But oftentimes when we are scholars, we don't think about the service part of what we do. And I always wanted to make it easy to access me and the knowledge and the wisdom and the understanding that I've accumulated around the interior lives of Black men. So I was deeply concerned, and I thought, well, I'm sure they have lots of help coming in, but it's important that I don't sit and watch. When we walk by, we just walk by, these things happen and we just walk by. I think there's a consequence for us too. And as a Black woman, I've always understood that what happens in the lives of Black men and boys is inexplicably, linked to my life. There isn't a separation between what Black men and boys experience and what I experience as a Black woman in the world.
So how is it that you arrived at that in terms of your research? And I know that we've made some of your papers and kind of your seminal points of scholarship accessible, but can you go into that why a little bit more? Because we were, again, talking a little bit, we first came in contact with one another because of a research group that was focusing, a national research group that was focusing on Black men and Black boys. And I know that so often it's easy for us to step into these trauma spaces, and not look at assets and benefits and resources that surround us. I'm sorry, I'm mixing questions here, but can you talk to us a little bit more around your why and how it is that you arrived at doing research that focuses or centers Black men in many ways, but we know that you look at Black families writ large as well.
Yeah, to know me, you have to know that I'm an accidental scholar. I'm really not, I'm supposed to be here because I'm supposed to be here, but this was not the trajectory or the path that I presumed I would be on. Because when I started my life in Norfolk, Virginia, and my homie, Dr. Johann C. Murray, we went to high school together, I was on this trajectory to become an artist, and I did. I am an artist, I still practice as a creative, but I didn't imagine that I would be living the life of the mind. That was just not something that was on my radar. But what was on my radar in the community where I lived in Tidewater Park in Norfolk, Virginia, which was a community filled with a lot of love and a lot of amazing people, but we also were living in a time where, the crack epidemic was sieging our community. I literally overnight watched men, women, children who were upright one day, sort of like on the threshing floor, brought to the threshing floor because of the epidemic. And I understood then that the wounding that happens, in a community affects all of us. Mm-hmm. And I particularly took note at that time of the men and boys in my community because of the ways that they were being consumed by that epidemic. But I also had this sort of earlier sort of fire in my belly around the health of men and boys lit up by the loss of my maternal grandfather. So my maternal grandfather, Eddie Powell, was a Korean War veteran. He was a single father of 9 children at a time when the humanities of black men were illegible and black single fathers were invisibilized. When we talked about black fatherhood at the time that my grandfather was alive, we were talking about what Daniel Moynihan had to say about black fathers and the black family. So he was nowhere, his humanity was nowhere written or inscribed in that history. But I also watched my grandfather, sort of negotiate the world in a really closed, emotional way. I mean, he was always loving to us, but really never really talked about any of the things that he experienced. It was only later that I came to understand that my grandfather had to leave Alabama in the middle of the night to escape a potential lynching. And that because he left his family, he never really had an opportunity to be integrated into that family as he grew up as a man. So he was completely socially isolated. And today we know a lot about the impacts of social isolation on the mental and physical health of human beings. But at that time, my grandfather didn't have that knowledge base. What he had was the responsibility to raise these 9 kids and to keep moving forward, and to do that without showing his emotion. Right? Because also we know that during that particular time in our history, showing your emotions meant opening yourself up to all kinds of external or exogenous threats. So my grandfather intuitively knew that. But because he didn't have a place to lay down his troubles, his experiences, my grandfather became consumed with solving or coping with his challenges through alcohol. So my grandfather, who was an upright Marine, who served our country valiantly and his family even more, died at the age of 56. And so when you think about that kind of loss in a family, sometimes we think when we lose men that the boys are affected, and they are. Boys need their fathers. But so do girls. And what I saw as a consequence of that loss was a pattern in the family of disillusion, despair, and depression, actually, among the girls, who, without their fathers, made all kinds of choices in their romantic lives. Dated the wrong men, stayed too long in the relationships, all of that, because we lost that patriarch. So it taught me really early that when men and boys perish before they've had an opportunity to reach their potential, we all suffer as a consequence.
So how were you able to use that reflexivity and that kind of deconstruction or deep observation of your narrative and your lived experience with your family, and not fall into those traps of depression or alcoholism yourself or these other kinds of things? How do you do that? Because there might be folk here, or as I'm thinking about things, it seems like it's easier to slip into kind of these pathological trapdoors than to kind of be creative about how it is that you move beyond them. So what were some things that allowed you to press on differently?
Well, I mean, first of all, God. So let me just name what is true for me, and it doesn't have to be true for you, but for me, it was God. I don't believe that my life is any different than the number of young people in my community who lost their lives in the midst of the things I described earlier. I was no different from those human beings. There was nothing special, I thought, about myself. In fact, the way I think about myself today, even as a scholar and a person in the world, I'm 2 things: Hodor, from Game of Thrones, I'm holding a door, or I'm the key maker from The Matrix, I'm opening a door. Two of those things. Really seemingly insignificant roles, but if those roles don't happen, things don't happen, right? So I think that for me, I was rescued because I was a creative. The arts for me were a way for me to find my own humanity, metabolize my own trauma, and also be culled out of my community. I mean, I have to shout out Margie Day Walker, who started the Center Stage Children's Theater. This was the time, folk, you know, when people could roll up to your door and say, can I take your children away in a station wagon all day on a Saturday? And you didn't question it, okay? The times when we used to go outside and play all day and your parents didn't know where you were. So Margie Day Walker came into our community and she said to my mother, I think your daughter is talented. I would love for her and her sisters to come be a part of Center Stage Children's Theater. And you know what that meant? On Saturdays, when folks were getting into all kinds of foolery, I was dancing and reciting, you know, the creation. Or I was painting or singing or performing. And so the arts for me was the way that I found was it access to a form of resources that helped me make meaning of my experiences. And the first paper that I wrote was called Being a Man About It, Manhood Meaning Among Black Men. Even then as a child, before I had the language, I was doing exactly what I know we all try to do when we try to make sense of our lives.
How old was that? How old was that, do you think?
How old was I?
When you wrote that?
Manhood Meaning. Oh, so I wrote that paper in 2005. Ooh,
Okay.
It's been that many years.
Okay.
And when I think about that access to those resources to help me express myself, I realized that those were the things that made the difference. And now we know a lot from neuroarts and neuroaesthetics, that actually arts and creativity rewire the brain and help you build new neural networks. So me singing and dancing and being a hip hop artist, there is an album out there. I will not tell you the name of it. If you find it, then
there is one for real.
But I mean, I realize that access to expression is very important, and it's important for all of the young men that are here too.
So how do we put that into action? We were talking about how you are such a multi-hyphenate, right? So you have your arts, you are a real live scholar, you know, and you certainly could stay in those ivory towers or in that ivory tower. How is it that we can engender in ourselves and in these young black men here kind of multi-hyphenation, especially, and you use the language, help me if I'm butchering it, but you use the language of play and wonder, right? And that can sound so kind of, man, what are you talking about? You're playing wonder. Who's talking about? But you talk about, you know, creating new space and neural networks as you're able to play and wonder. How do you do that kind of stuff when you're worrying about, you know, being a double major in civil engineering and in physics? How do you play and wonder around those kinds of things if you're trying to figure out, okay, well, next week is midterms and I got to make sure that I'm pulling this GPA right so that I get this scholarship next year and all that kind of stuff. How do we make space for that, or in what ways can we practically look at how we take care of ourselves so that we don't slip into, again, some of those trap doors that might exist within our family histories? Yeah,
and I have to say my grandfather was a pianist. So he was the creative in my maternal bloodline that actually sort of, I think I get a lot of my musicality and interest in music from. So I mentioned that because I think if my grandfather had been able to have enough space for that part of his life, like I didn't know he played the piano because he never played it for me. I mean, I saw him going to work, I saw him shoveling snow, I saw him doing all the things.
How'd you find out?
Well, after he passed, my sister and I have been over the past maybe decade putting together the genealogy of our families and collecting family stories, and someone shared that with me. I said I had no idea he played the piano. So I'm saying this to say access to your creative self is not optional. And I don't mean, like, no, everybody in here ain't gonna be K&D Wiley or De La Soul. It's not about that. It's about the process of allowing your brain and your mind to have a place to rest. I rest in creativity. It's the way that I reassemble myself daily. I have a daily creative practice, even if it's just writing a stanza or 16 bars. I'm doing that every day because I need to create a space for myself to come home to myself. And to me, creativity is about coming home to yourself. And I think what we've missed the mark, and I think this is why so many young men and young girls and women are struggling, because we have been programming young people to believe that the goal is for you to, the end goal is all that it's about, getting the degree, writing the paper, finishing the midterm, but it's the process that matters. Creativity is about embracing the process of becoming, of unfolding.
But what do you say to those folks, and you were talking a little bit in the beginning around kind of what it means to be a man. Look, I hear what you're saying, Doc, but what it means to be a man is I got to make this money. You know what I'm saying? I got to make sure that I'm able to provide for my family back home. I don't have time to be playing the piano or writing stanzas every day and all that kind of stuff. There are real, live, pressing things that I have to take care of. So how do we get out of those kind of classical tropes of what masculinity is supposed to be? Even in Let's Hope and Pray, that as progressive a space as Morehouse might be, where there are multiple masculinities, but we still can be reductive to kind of singular masculinities of how it is that we really need to be successful and achieve. I've got to make money. I've got to get this job. I've got to get into this graduate school. I've got to marry this person. With all of those pressures, how do we make practical the space to play and to wonder? And also, how is it that we kind of shake ourselves out of these unhealthy descriptors and legibilities of how black men are supposed to be?
Yeah, so I'm going to take a stab at this, and you let me know if I get to what you're hoping to hear about. What I want to say is, we have treated for so long masculinity as if it is singular, and as if there's one way to be a man. That just sounds foolish when you think about the complexity of human beings. Like, we're not monolithic in the ways we think or feel, or even in the ways that we operate from day to day. So why on earth would we expect the gendered ways that we navigate the world to be uniform? Like, it just doesn't make any sense. So I say the first thing you do is disrupt and push back on that. Like, you are more than the sum total of the tropes and the stereotypes that people have thrown at you. Men are more than just machines, more than just providers. Black men are waymakers, black men are creatives, black men are dope. Like, so many things about who you are need to be seen and honored, respected, and elevated. And I think that one thing that it isn't just up to black men, which is why I sit in this space with confidence, to rewrite those social scripts, because masculinity isn't in your biology. It is in the social norms and values that you breathe in every day, and we all contribute to them. So I think that one way that we help young black men, or black men at any age, sort of rediscover the source, the core of who they are, their humanity, is by not creating spaces that require them to show up hardened. Right? Like, so I think that the most important thing we can do for black men today is hold space and allow them freely to be whoever they want to be in the world. Like, it just doesn't make sense that we are asking black men to be something so narrow. Think about that. Like, be strong, be silent, be stoic, don't show your emotions. Also, but provide, pick me up on Saturday night and take me out. Like, so many, requirements. So I think that I would encourage young black men today to one, determine not who you want to be for other people, but who you want to be for yourself. To spend some time exploring your interior life, to get to know what your emotions truly are. One thing I know for sure is that Black men and boys, and this is not just unique to Black men and boys, I think this is unique to humans who are living in a gendered experience that we call male, that the difficulty labeling emotions is so profound that we actually have a term for it. It's called normative male alexithymia. The difficulty with accessing and expressing, labeling emotions. Your emotions are myriad. There's a whole emotion wheel that has about maybe 50, 60 different kinds of emotions. And you know what we teach boys and men? How to be angry, how to be strong and silent, maybe to feel sadness and grief, but even when they're in that space, we want to move them quickly. Honor your interior life. Your emotions are bodily rememory. Your emotions are wisdom.
Dr. Powell, what else is there besides being angry, mad, sad, anxious,
Oh my
stuff
gosh.
like what I mean, and how do we begin to name those? Get him right there.
Yeah.
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 How do
It's
we
all good.
how do we do that?
Well,
I mean, and
yeah.
I'm really asking like practically.
No,
so
I know.
so
Yeah.
okay, what if you don't have the vocabulary?
Yes.
You know what I mean? And you're talking about holding space, and
Yeah.
all these things sound necessary, and I'm with it, right? How is it that these young men can say, okay, I'm getting ready to hold space for myself. I'm getting ready to get in touch with who I am. I want to make sure I start naming emotions, but they don't have the vocabulary or necessarily the tools to do that yet. How do we,
Yeah.
or do we have the tools?
Well, I mean, I don't know that for every person. Every
Yep.
person's different in the range of knowledge that they have about their emotional selves.
Yes.
I would say treat your emotional life like you would treat any other skill that you want to obtain or any sort of knowledge base that you want to acquire.
Got it.
So seek help. Like, for real. Get a therapist or a coach, because not everybody needs therapy. Get a pastoral counselor. Make sure that you are having, especially at this age, make sure that you are having a regular touch point with someone about your mental health.
Why this age? Why do you say especially at this age?
Because this age, well, I'm imagining most people in this space are somewhere, with the exception of, the old heads, are between the ages of 18 to 29, somewhere in there. We call that period emerging adulthood. That period of human development is a period when your identity is rapidly unfolding, your brain architecture is still being cemented. And it is the period where we see the fastest and most steep escalation in serious mental illness in human beings. So if you're gonna get schizophrenia or psychosis, any other forms of psychosis, it's likely to happen during this period. This is also the period when your hormones are also rapidly maturing.
Yeah.
There's a lot of cooking and baking happening.
Yes.
So there's a lot of possibility for emotional upsetment and disorientation. It's just part of human development. It's the reason why we call this the period of becoming.
Yes.
Like, we're all becoming during this age. So it's really important at this stage, especially if you haven't already, to have someone that helps you. Form a group of brothers, get together and talk about what you're experiencing, for real. Not the like, oh, I'm good. Not the nod we give each other, because we want to just move on when someone asks us if we're okay. But make sure you have a team, a squad, someone surrounding you that you can check in about your emotional selves, and who know you well enough to say, yo, something's up.
Yeah, that's important. I want to ask folks if they want to come forward in either of these aisles, if there are questions to ask. I'm going to ask one more and then want to make sure I open it up to the audience. So if you want to come up, please do. I'm curious about, you said that you have like kind of you have a daily creative exercise, or you make time for yourself daily to be creative and to do the work. When and how did you come about doing that? And how do you do these many different things? Because I'm thinking as we're talking, I just saw her on Peloton. You know, I mean, like, I know that, you know, when they say your friends are working out and all that kind of stuff, like, how do you, and how are you able to be intentional about that?
Yeah. Well, listen, first of all, give yourself grace as you try to establish for yourself the practices daily that work for you. It's not like I was this evolved person at your age. Like, I wasn't. I was still struggling to discover who I am and who I was becoming. The second is, you know, you may not be able to consistently do the thing that you started doing, or you said, like, that's why I'm not a big vision board person. Like, if you sit down and do a vision board, you know, one day, you know, at the end of the year, and then you like look at that vision board every day. I do a layered vision board. I put a blank page up on canvas on my wall, and for 365 days, I'm adding new visions to it, because that's the way it unfolds. So I'm saying that I came into this knowing about what I needed to function at my highest level, you know, as I grew and developed. So I'm now more regimented. There are things that are just non-negotiables for me, not just because it's fun, but because without them, it gnaws at me. If I don't actually spend time painting, writing, creating music, you know what happens when I try to sit down and write my strategic plan? Those things are intruding they're like, listen, you're gonna wake up and listen to me. So I've decided we're not gonna fight. I'm just gonna make space for you to do this. And it's not like I spend a lot of time. So there are like 10, if you were to ask me what my daily practice is, I wake up in the morning, I make sure I greet God and the ancestors first, because they're the reasons why I'm here and that I can be here. And then, so that's meditation and prayer. I'm a mindfulness-based stress reduction practitioner, and I've been practicing mindfulness now for more than 15 years. And so that's really, really important to me. And I've got to move my body. I was diagnosed with lupus when I was in my early childhood. And so for me, exercise is important so that I can stay alive. So it's not negotiable. And then I have to make sure that I rest. So those are the things for me that are non-negotiable: rest, prayer, play, and creativity. And creativity and play for me are the same kinds of things. I think that we all have to figure out what works for us. Yeah. And setting up a self-care practice like that for yourself should be the goal. And you tweak it. Like, I started out thinking, I'm gonna be able to, my husband works out at 4 a.m.
Good night.
I hate those people. No, just kidding. But 4 a.m., he's like, I'm getting up at 4 a.m., I'm gonna, you know, work out for, like, I tried that, and my body was like, no, you're not a 4 a.m. riser, so I can't do that. But I make time for exercise at a time that works for me. So all I'm saying is, like, take care of yourselves, beloved. Like, do the things for you that matter for you. It isn't just about finishing this program, the programs that you're enrolled in, and congratulations to all of you for being here and doing the thing. But it isn't just about that. Because if you do all of that and at the end you are broken into 1,000 little pieces, then that process is, you know, doesn't yield the fruit that it's supposed to. Right. We don't need you just to finish your degree. We need you to finish whole. And we need you. We need each and every one of you in this audience, not because we expect you to hold the culture or move the race. Not everybody has to do that. We need you to be here because you are you. Because you matter just because you are. That's what's important.
I love that. I love that. Questions? Did you have a question? Mike's here. I got to do some Oprah Winfrey type stuff. Old school. I know you guys never seen Oprah Winfrey.
Isaiah Brooks, freshman sociology major from Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. And one question I have is, when you're talking about creativity, how do you harness that as opposed to simply like mirroring influences around us? Especially now with a lot of information we're getting, finding it hard to like cultivate original thoughts. You know what I mean? So how will you like start that journey specifically?
Oh, this is one of my favorite questions. Thank you for it. Because, and I love that you're calling us all in to rethink how we discover the foundations of our own creativity. And it's real hard, right? Because you have social media, you have AI. Like, I grew up with Atari. I still have the blister on my thumb, right? Like, it just like, we didn't have those resources. So I do think that creativity starts with consuming. You do consume other people's art. When I'm writing a book, I read all the books that I think can help me formulate my thoughts, and I look for form and style. So what I would say is, as a creative, like, don't tell someone else's story. This bothers me now with hip hop. I'm not gonna go on a rampage, but I will say this. Don't, everybody out here telling everybody else's story. That ain't your story, bruh. Sis, that's not your story. Tell your story. Use the artistry and the creative influences out in the world to inspire you, but don't mimic them. Because what you have to offer uniquely as a creative is so valuable. And it will, if it's done well, be inspired by the greats. I think I'm inspired by James Baldwin, Octavia Butler. I'm inspired by all of those folks, but I am not them. And I don't want my voice to sound like them. So to keep it pure, make sure that you are focusing in on, if you admire a creative in the world, that you're not trying to become them. You're trying to figure out how you extract the form and style that they have created in a way that inspires you to do the same. So you're learning the architecture of the art form rather than the substance and the content.
Hello, my name is Caleb Wesley. I'm a freshman physics and music double major from North Carolina. I was just wondering, like, you're talking all about creativity, but like my concern is like some people don't know how to be creative, or like, because like me personally, my passion is music, so I always find ways to tap into that. But some people don't like music. Like some people don't like creating music. Like some people don't like writing. How would you? Because some people don't feel like they are creative. So like, how would someone who feels like they aren't the artist type or like the creative type, how would you tell them to like tap into that side of themselves?
That's a great question. First of all, I would encourage everyone to read the book, The Artist's Way. It is an important foundational book that will help answer some of the questions that you've raised here. What I will say is that artistry or creativity isn't about the product you produce, it's the process. Creativity is about returning to wonder, awe, imagination, and inspiration at its foundation. So if you are a person who thinks, I can't paint, I can't draw, I can't do any of those things, I would imagine that there are parts of your experience and the ways that you navigate what you're doing now that are in fact creative. I see creativity unfolding every day. Mothers who figure out how to make $1 out of 15 cents are creatives, okay? Like we every day in our lives are doing the things that help us solution. At its core, creativity is a skill set. It's a brain skill. So even if it's just practicing in it, some of us don't want to practice because we don't think we'll be good at it. Right? Like for years, people would ask me, can you paint? And I was like, I can't draw stick people because I hadn't tried. It just wasn't something I thought I could do. And I sat down and I tried and I actually could draw more than stick people. But even if I couldn't, the process of doing it, of painting really helped me recover from the grief and loss of my mom. And it was through that experience that I uncovered a part of myself that was creative. So I would say be an archaeologist in that way. Like really like excavate the parts of yourself that are in fact creative through journaling, spending time in nature. Like you would be surprised of the kinds of inspiration you get when you leave your normative environment and go someplace else. And it doesn't have to be like you have to get on a plane, go to a park, walk, think, take time off your screens. Please take some time away from your screens, because it is in that quiet recesses of your mind that you'll find that reservoir of creativity that I'm describing. And it isn't, again, about you being able to make beats or, create a painting or dance with Alvin Ailey. It's really just about you finding joy.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Hello, Dr. Powell. Thank you for speaking today. My name is Andrew Camuche. I'm a sophomore theater performance major from Collins, Georgia. And you talked highly about men and what they represent and what we should be representing. Here at Morehouse, our mission statement is producing well-disciplined men who are well-dressed, well-balanced, well-spoken, well-read, and well-read. I'm traveled, I'm sorry, thank you. And I wanted to know how you would enhance that statement and how we can practice that more and more on.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's important that we have ritual and organizing principles to make a community more, not just resilient in the ways that like bounce back, but also bounce forward. So I'm gonna say that all of those things in the statement to me speak to that core need, right? For us to have discipline, ritual, organizing principles, et cetera. What I would add to the statement is that it's important that we don't just think about those aspects of respectable manhood or those aspects of manhood that are polished and show up buttoned up. We should be allowed to be a little bit messy in the middle as we discover. So what I would say is that it's also about to me, when I think about what black men have taught me about manhood, is that manhood is about redemption, proactive pursuit of strength and resilience for your family and your community and your relationship with God. So to me, it's about wholeness. So I would say, I would add the word for the whole man, somewhere in there, because I do think that you are more than just the suit and the tie and all of the things. And I would much rather, maybe this is the therapist in me, have a young man show up to me unbuttoned, because then I know I might be seeing the real him.
There you go.
So just be whole, brothers. Like, pursue that relentlessly, and don't let anyone narrow the range of your experience interiorly or exteriorly.
Okay. Thank you.
Dr. Powell's going to stay with us. I want to take two more questions on the mic, and then we'll sing the college hymn, and then we'll get to folk afterward. Okay?
Yeah,
I want to make sure.
I'm happy to stay back.
Yeah, that you know that we are getting it in. Okay? So yes, please.
And I'll try to be briefer.
Good morning, Dr. Powell. My name is Corey Irby. I'm a freshman marketing major from Memphis, Tennessee. My question to you is, what are some ways that you would suggest that we as young black men embrace our emotions daily? Earlier you spoke on emotions and us not really being like allowed the space to cry or grieve, and even if we are, it's kind of rushed and pushed along and kind of just like disregarded. How do you think we can embrace our emotions daily and making a better practice of it to where we become emotionally intelligent, as beings?
I love this. Thank you for this beautiful question.
That's right.
I think what is most important is that you get to know your emotional self and approach that process of getting to know your emotional self with curiosity. So it's about being still, because we can't see ourselves in running water. It's also about making sure that when an emotion shows up, that the first reaction isn't to contain it, but to greet it like, hey, grief. Like, there's a song, Good Morning Heartache. I would sing it if my throat wasn't so sore. But like literally greeting your emotions with curiosity, and then asking yourself a few questions around your emotions every day. What am I feeling? Can you name the emotion? How is it showing up in my body? Because a lot of times the emotional states that we feel first represent themselves somatically. That butterfly in your stomach, that thing in your chest, that all of that ache in your back may be related to some emotion you're experiencing. And so you have to map those emotions daily. And then I think the last thing I would say is daily, make sure that you are spending time journaling and writing down something about your emotions. I actually keep on my nightstand a notepad, which is like my emotional dump at the end of the night. This might work for some of you. Like, you know how you lay down in bed and you're like thinking about all the things and you just can't seem to settle down? I have found that if I write down, not in free form, sometimes it's just a mind map, just words on a page, what I'm feeling, that I'm able to rest better. The point here is to pay attention on purpose. This is what mindfulness is, paying attention on purpose, moment to moment, to the way that you feel. And the last part of that is not to judge your emotions. Let it be. Because it is you. And in that moment, what that emotion is trying to teach you is so important to know. So when you push it away, you also push away the wisdom that comes with what that emotion is trying to teach you in the moment. Get familiar with yourself daily.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Good morning, my name is Kendrick Pugh. I'm a freshman psychology major from Old Bridge, New Jersey, and I'm going to try and be very quick with this, so I might speak a little quickly, but I'm more questioning the system of masculinity itself. How do you think we could break these bad notions of masculinity, or do you think masculinity in itself is a healthy system? I'm saying that because it pushes onto us these standards that we must apply to ourselves, but not every person would even fit into those standards, so is the system too rigid to truly have a place in our society as we grow and change?
So masculinity, first of all, is plural. Masculinities is the way we talk about it, and I know you know that because you've already expressed it, but I'll say it for the audience. And what I would say is that it isn't that masculinities are bad. Like, I hate the term toxic masculinity because it really reifies this assumption that men who embrace certain norms and values are irreparably broken. Like, men aren't toxic, boys aren't toxic. The systems, the air they breathe in, the values that we rigidly hold them to, that's the toxicity. It isn't the men and boys who actually find themselves embracing and mobilizing that. So I would say that masculinities do have a place. I've learned in my own research that actually there are positive consequences of embracing some dimensions of masculinity. So, for example, men who are more self-determined, and we know self-determination is an important part of being a human being, but when black men embrace norms around self-determination, they're less likely to delay timely preventive health screenings, right? Because in that instance, masculinity functions as a way for men to reclaim the dominion over their bodies. Like, so that actually is not a bad thing. What we should be doing, though, and I know that we all do, is disrupt those single stories. Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie told us about the dangers of a single story. We've been telling single stories about black masculinities. Exactly. Tell whole stories, brothers. Like, show up in the world whole. That's how you rewrite the script. And then resist the urge to embrace with rigidity those norms that grind you into dust. Because constantly restricting your emotions is like playing the fiercest game of whack-a-mole. Like, you try to push that thing down one place, it's gonna pop up someplace else. It's gonna pop up in your relationships, in your work, in the ways that you move with your family and in community. It is not going to be sheltered in the ways you think. So I think that masculinities are an important part of a human experience. And I am not here to feminize the men and say don't feel like a man. That's not it. It's about wholeness. And the problem with masculinities is that they've been too narrowly constructed.
That's it. That's it.
Yeah,
That's
thank
it.
you.
We'll get.
Yeah, I
thank
do
you.
have another question.
Nope, that's it.
Yeah, I'll ask later.
Other question afterwards. Afterwards, though.
Yeah, I'm saying afterwards I'll ask.
Sounds great.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you.
So we are going to hold space to be in continued conversation with Dr. Powell after we sing the college hymn. Dr. Powell, I love you so much. You're so
love
wonderful.
is mutual, my brother.
And thank you for being here with us, but also for us. So we really appreciate that. Dr. Wizdom Powell, everybody.
Thank you.
Stephen. Thank you. Come on stage. I didn't tell you this.
That's okay.
All right, if you stand up and we'll get ready to sing the college hymn, please. Right over left.
Dear old Morehouse.
Dear old Morehouse, we have pledged our lives to thee, and will ever, yea forever, give ourselves in loyalty. True forever, true forever, to old Morehouse may we be. So to bind each son the other into ties more brotherly. Holy Spirit, make us steadfast, honest, true, to old Morehouse and her ideals, and in all things that we do.
So if you have remaining questions, please come on up.